Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire for Scrapbook and Cards Today. In this video, I want to show you 3 fun things that you can do with sequins on your cards. I shared these ideas in the recent issue of Scrapbook and Cards Today, but sometimes I think it's easier to see it in action. I'm going to first start with the technique I used for this sunshine. It's creating a pattern of sequins behind a die-cut window for a really cool effect. I'm starting with a piece of white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which is the size of a note card, and I have die cut this My Favorite Things sun from the front of it. I have two pieces actually, of Post-it tape here. This is just sticky like Post-it note. You can use a Post-it note or any kind of sticky surface for this. It's going to really help with our sequin placement. Now I put my sun die cut down onto the sticky side of this Post-it tape, and I'm tracing the sun onto the Post-it tape. This Post-it tape is going to hold our sequins as we arrange them and then glue them onto our card. Okay, so after I've quickly traced that, I can start filling in the area with sequins. Now when I put the sequins down, I'm putting them down upside down because I'm going to actually transfer these onto my cardstock. So I'm putting them kind of cup side down, but you can do it any way you want. Just keep in mind they will flip. So I'm arranging these to kind of fill in the areas, and the stickiness of that Post-it tape is holding them in place. I'm using a little tool that helps to pick up the sequins, but you could either use your fingers or you could use even tweezers if that works for you. So I'm kind of filling in the area that I've traced of that sunshine die cut. After I have them arranged how I want them to be, I'm going to put some strong liquid adhesive onto the bigger sequins. I'm not worrying about the tiny sequins. I'll add those back in later. So I'm putting a tiny little drop. I like Ranger Multi-Medium because it has a matte finish. So if some of it oozes out the side, I don't have to worry about it showing when it dries. So I'm just putting adhesive on the back of all of these larger sequins, and then I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock and press it on top very firmly. So we're going to transfer those sequins onto that cardstock once it's dry. So I'm going to press that white cardstock down onto it, and I'm going to put something heavy over this while it dries. So I'm going to leave it for about 15 minutes just to be sure that it's completely set before we remove it. So now I can remove my Post-it tape, and you can see the little sequins are staying behind. That's because I didn't put adhesive on them. I didn't want the adhesive to squeeze through the little holes in those tiny sequins. Now I can go in and fill in any that didn't transfer in the first place, and all of these tiny little sequins also. I really love the look of patterns created with sequins. It looks really great when you're finished, and you can keep the rest of the card very simple. Here I filled in an area kind of radiating out from the center, but you could also just do a border across the bottom of a card if you wanted to. So after I filled my pattern within that traced sunshine, I wanted to add a little more bling to it. So I decided to put a few small gems in the center of the large sequins. This is a great way to really make sequins pop, to add something to the center. I really like these Hero Arts gemstones because they come in super tiny sizes all the way up to a bigger size. So you can use whichever you want, and they're very inexpensive also. You could even use a drop of stickles in the center if you wanted to. Okay, so I finished my pattern here. You can see lots of shine in here. I even put some heart-shaped sequins in some of the openings. And now I can put my die-cut window over it. And you can see, since we filled in the area that we traced, that it fits perfectly. Okay, so I want this to pop up so that none of our sequins get kind of smushed in the mail. So I'm putting some double-sided tape around the back side of the die-cut window opening. So now I'm going to put this right over our sunshine. Now you'll see some of this cardstock is sticking off from the top, but that's okay. I'll just trim that off when I'm done. And then I can glue this onto a card front. I just added a gold heat embossed sentiment underneath it and trimmed the sides down so that I could show a little bit of the gold foil cardstock note card that I added this to. So this is one way to use sequins, is to create a pattern, especially behind a die-cut window. It really makes a great impact. My second idea for adding sequins to cards is to layer them on top of each other to create little embellishments. There are a few different ways to do this, and I've played around with the different ways, but the one that I'm going to show you I found to be the easiest. So I have a piece of silver string here. It's about 1 foot long, and I'm going to put a double knot right at the center of the string, or as close to the center as I can get. I find that doing a double knot really makes sure that you secure your sequins in place, because we're actually going to stitch our sequins in place. You could glue them on top of each other, but I find this adds some fun to it because you have a little knot of stitching right at the top. Okay, so I have my double knot right at the center of the string. I'm going to take the 2 ends of the string and match them up together. I am then going to feed them through the eye of a needle so that we can go ahead and add our sequins to this. And once we put our sequins to it, it'll stop at that double knot. I will first add the smallest sequin, the sequin that I want to be sitting on the top of my little stack of sequins that we'll add to the card. So I'm just starting with a blue sequin. Once I put the needle through it, I'm going to pull it all the way down to that double knot. So you'll see there's a double knot right on the top of that sequin. Now I can go ahead and add my medium sequin and keep adding as many as I want on top of each other. The look is really fun. It looks like its own little embellishment. Okay, now I just poke a hole where I want to add this to my card, pull it through the back, and you can see I have that double knot right on the top of my stack of sequins. And then I can just tape the ends down on the back and trim it off. You can see I've done several here. On some of them I even layered as many as 5 sequins. Again, you could glue these on top of each other, but I like that they kind of spin, and I can be sure that this will hold up in the mail. This brings us to my third idea for adding sequins to cards, and this is to cut the sequins in half so you can put them right along a border. So I have some peach color cardstock, and I die cut a little panel out of it in this wave shape using this Paper Smooches die. And then I'm going to grab a bunch of sequins here. You can use any sequins for this, and you're just going to cut them in half right down the center. I find it easiest to pinch them between my finger and then cut right down the center. You just want to be careful. I found that these Tim Holtz scissors cut these beautifully, but you could probably use any scissors that you have. I'm sure to cut up a bunch of different size sequins in a variety of colors, so I can just have a random assortment across my border. To adhere these sequins, I'm again using a super strong adhesive. I really like the Ranger Multi-Medium because it's super strong, and I can be sure that the sequins will not come off in the mail. So I encourage you to use something very strong. I found that any kind of dry adhesive doesn't seem to hold them well when they go through the mail. Okay, so I'm putting the adhesive down and then just lining up the half sequins along the edge of this little curve here. You can do this along the outside edge of a card or maybe around the frame that you put on the front of a card, of a little card window. Just be sure that you're lining the edge of the sequins up with the edge of your paper. It gives a nice clean look. So what I do is I put a few down, and while it's still wet, I just go ahead and run my finger along that edge just to make sure it's a nice smooth positioning. Okay, so I went ahead and put the sequins along the 2 edges, and now I'm tracing those edges onto a white note card so I know where I need to stamp my sentiment. I need to stamp in that window. Now I have a long sentiment from a Paper Smooches stamp set, and I'm mounting it on my acrylic block at a curve that matches that curve on my note card. Sorry, my head's getting in the way there. I had to look straight above to do this, but I'm mounting it so that it curves just perfectly to fit in that area. This is one of the fun things you can do with long, clear sentiments like this. You can put it at an arch or even stamp it along the edge of a circle. Then I added some craft foam to the back of the 2 pieces that have the sequins and adhered that on the note card so that they would stand up and the sentiment would be kind of set back. So that's a third way you can use your sequins. Just cut them in half for a completely different look. I hope this video inspires you to break out your sequins and find some fun ways to use them. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to Scrapbook and Cards today.